準備到可以得啦嚇，唔該你要係咪9點鐘我哋？係。唔該時間已經到。
We've reached the appointed hour. Now let's invite the witness into the room. Concerning the transcript on the 26th of September, does the witness have a copy of that? I believe so. May I welcome David and Mr. Tong. Mr. Tong. Now, you are still under oath, Mr. Tong, on the 20th of May, and if you need to talk to your legal advisor, you may first apply to the chair. I hope that you can be more direct in answering our questions so that we can complete the open hearing today. Thank you once again for coming. Members, on the 6th of September, or rather on the 26th of September, we had a meeting, and afterwards we wrote to the ICAC asking for the receipts of the gifts and also who bought the gifts and for whom were the gifts. And we wrote on the 4th and also the 15th of October asking for the documents, but the commissioner replied that he was not able to give us the documents because such documents might be involved in the investigation on the misconduct in public office matters. And therefore, I would like to ask Mr. Tong the following. Since you are giving evidence under oath, you are under the protection of the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Perhaps the legal advisor can explain how he is protected. Mr. Tong is summoned by this committee. Therefore, he cannot refuse to answer the question because there may be criminal implications. Now, in fact, we give you a chance, Mr. Tong, to you concerning the buying of gifts and also the buying of briskets and fish balls. Who bought that? To whom were the food given? You can give us the answer. Or do you need to talk to your lawyer first? Chairman, if I may apply for your permission to talk to my lawyer. Thank you. Please go ahead. A show of hands, who would like to ask questions? Yes, Kenneth? Alan, Paul, Yukman, Enlisting, and then Yukman. Chairman, concerning the issue of briskets and fish balls, as for the details of the receipts, I don't know, but I do have an impression of that occasion in respect of the background of buying these things. May I now? Yes, you may choose to reply. I was aware of buying that. The purpose was to give it to a unit leaving Hong Kong. There was a short discussion. That institution in the past gave us fruit, lychees, and other products to the ICAC, so there was the proposal to buy similar things and give those things gifts to them. Who bought that? And at what time? I don't know who bought that, but, because I'm not involved in the details. Kenneth, you are the first. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Tong, I want to go back to the a witness given by Mr. Pei and also your former colleagues of the ICAC. I just want to clarify certain issues. To be fair, Mr. Chairman, I hope that Mr. Tong can refer to the transcript on the 26th of September. Do you have a copy, Mr. Tong? Yes, I do. Which page, please? Let's start from the back. Mr. Tong, would you please turn to page 126 of the transcript? Yes, please. Mr. Tong, the acting, or rather the acting assistant commissioner answer this question. Now that's about the question was on the mileage earned by Mr. Tong. Mr. Tong, are you a member of Air Miles? How many such clubs were you a member? Cathay Marco Polo Club member. I also have the Fly Blue membership. It was dormant. I seldom use that. When I asked the AC, Assistant Commissioner, Mr. Tong, during your term, you had 35 visits overseas. On page 126, according to record, Mr. Tong had about 31,000 miles, and 30,000 miles had been used for public duty visits. Now, if you flew to London, and then the distance is about 7,000 miles. You only spend 30,000 miles on public duties. And then where did you spend the balance? I want to remind the witness that according to the IRC report, in particular page 11F, the mileage should be reported. I just want to know, Mr. Tong, of the 35 trips, how many miles have you accumulated and how you deal with those, the mileage? You only spent 30,000 miles, but what about the balance? Concerning the mileage accumulated, I don't know the details. My colleagues made the record. And the mileage really depends on the airline companies. Of the 35 duty visits, how many were spent on airline companies which I had a mileage club arrangement? I didn't deal with the details. My colleagues did deal with them. Well, Mr. Tong is not aware of that. Now, on your day of retirement, were you aware of the mileage you had accumulated so far? About the time of my retirement, my colleague told me that they would deal with the mileage obtained through duty visits. I heard from time to time, say a certain colleague would go on an overseas visit and he would make use of my mileage to get air tickets. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether within the ICAC there was any record of the accumulation and deduction of mileage. Well, we can write to them to seek information. Mr. Tong, on the same document, I mean the transcript, please turn to page 125. Yes, Mr. Tong, please. Yes, 125. The question is about the ordering of air tickets. According to the AC, every time when Mr. Tong made overseas visits, the supplies office made the arrangement for the air tickets. But there were 14 occasions which the rule was breached. That was you didn't follow the rules to seek quotations. Can you explain that? Now, after the approval was given by the CE, then the approval document was given to the administration department, and then the administration department would follow the matter up. As for seeking quotations, I was not involved. I didn't know the details. Mr. Tong, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tong, did you instruct your subordinate in the administration department to order air tickets from a specified or particular company? I didn't make such instructions. Mr. Chairman, with regard to discussing overseas visits, members, or rather colleagues, should mention the date and time. The provision of flights or choices of flights would be made, and then information on flights would be made, and then I would say which flight was more appropriate. But in terms of a date and time, say in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, they gave me the information. If I may ask this, within the ICAC, do you have an agent to order air tickets? Well, I only have a general impression. There may be not a single, but not just one. There may be a list of agents. When you were the commissioner, was there a list of agents which would help you to get air tickets? I believe there was a list, and several quotations had to be sought, according to my impression. Kenneth. Yes. Mr. Tong. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Tong, please refer to page Roman 7 of the report. of the IRC. I have a question on 31A. Just a second. Let Mr. Tong fetch a document. 31A. Yes, 31A. Chairman, 31A. Mr. Tong visited Brazil. There were 2 accompanying officers who upgraded air passage to business class without approval, and the cost was $186,000. With regard to the CSO for upgrading air passage, what was your understanding and what was the approval process? Mr. Tong, in the past you did answer the question, but you may now answer it again. With regard to upgrading of air passage, there are provisions in the CSO. Since I don't have the CSO in front of me, the trip has to be very long, probably more than 9 hours. And when the officer arrives, he has to start working immediately. As there may be, and there are other more specific conditions, and all conditions have to be fulfilled in order to go through the application process. I cannot tell you offhand whether I have to approve that personally or whether there can be any delegation. But I'm the final person who gives the approval. So generally speaking, you need to give the approval, but you cannot recall whether you did personally approve this upgrading for this Brazil visit. I cannot recall that. But according to the IRC report, it seems that there is no document showing approval has been given to these 2 officers, and therefore there was no approval.
If there was no approval and an upgrading was still done, it seems that there is problem with the internal vetting of the ICAC. Well, because on every occasion, they need your signature for an upgrading, and on this occasion, there was no such thing. It seems that there is a serious oversight in the internal vetting mechanism, right, Mr. Tong? To put it simply, yes. Every time, well, I need to give an approval, but I think there should be some checking every time. Mr. Tong, may I refer you to the verbatim record, page 121. Well, this is about a discussion with Miss Julie Mu about the duty visit to Sihu, and also refer to Gen 22. Gen 22 is the application form for every duty visit to the Chief Executive. Let me give you the page number. Gen 22, page 123 is your application form in relation to a duty visit to Sihu. Can you find it? Yes, yes. Kenneth. Mr. Tong. The visit to Sihu, it was the 14th of Friday when you departed. It was the afternoon. On the 17th, Monday, you returned to Hong Kong. So I think when you return to Hong Kong on the 17th, it would be past noon, because the flight from Hangzhou was not too early in the morning. So I'd like to get some explanation from you, Mr. Tong. When you made the application to the Chief Executive, CE, you only wrote 14 to 16, 3 days only, while the 17th was not included. the Sihu Forum, November 2008. I remember this occasion. The duty visit to Sihu Forum, 3 days of 14 to 16. 3 days later, on a Monday, I took a few days leave, about 2 to 3 days. Before or after that? After the visit. I think it was the 17th. Sorry, I can only give you an account from my recollection. I think I made the application at the same time to the Chief Executive. One application is for the duty visit to Sihu, to the forum. The other one is an application related to personal matters. Mr. Tong, you referred to an application for leave. It's right after the 16th, that is, it started on the 17th. And where did you go during your leave, Mr. Tong? It's on the 17th when I took leave. Where did you go during your leave? Where were you, Mr. Tong? I really cannot recall where I was during my vacation leave. And prior to that, I was working in the forum. And in relation to where I was during my vacation leave, I cannot recall. Kenneth, this is related to his privacy. Mr. Tong, when you fill in the application form, well, it will be the departure. It would be the departure on the 14th in the afternoon, and you only return to Hong Kong on the 17th. Why did you tell the Chief Executive that the duty visit covered the period between the 14th and the 16th? Well, it's actually 4 days because you included that for the half day. For half a day on the 17th, you did not include it in the application to the Chief Executive. You thought you were just going through the motions, and since an application was approved by the Chief Executive every time, you just perfunctorily fill in the application. Mr. Tong, 3 days duty visit, 3 days vacation leave. I respected the application, and these two are separate applications, and I think that both were made around the same time to the Chief Executive. Kenneth, perhaps we can get the vacation leave application from the ICAC. We will ask for that information. Kenneth, I will continue on the Sihu Forum. Mr. Tong said that for the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he was working. Please refer to the verbatim record of 119. Which paragraph? Between lines 8 and 11. The reply from Julie Mu between line 15 and 29. Mr. Tong, I have a question for you. From Friday to Sunday, that was 2.5 days, you went to a Sihu Forum. It's a duty visit. You said it was for work. Well, you were the officiating guest and you made a speech. How much time did you spend on that? Ms. Mu said that she did not know whether you attended the forum. So what did you do in the 2.5 days? Can you recall, Mr. Tong? In the application to the Chief Executive, that is, Gen 22, page 123, I have a recollection about what I did that day. I attended the forum. I was the keynote speaker. The Sihu Forum was the first was we had the first anti-corruption center set up in China, and it was an exchange with ICAC Hong Kong, and I had some exchanges, some liaison with some parties there, and they were not just people from Hangzhou, so it was for official business. Yes, I have supplied the name there. It was to do with Zhejiang province. Mr. Leung. Gen 22, that is the application forms to the Chief Executive in relation to duty visits. You fill it in and then you would sign. Last time I asked a question of Mr. Tong whether he made a report to the Chief Executive after every visit. He said, well, not necessarily, and he did not recall whether there was detailed reports. And out of this bunch of application forms, on every one of them the Chief Executive signed, and in one of them, page 120, there are some handwritten comments. Is a visit between the 25th of May 2008 and 29th of May 2008 to Guangxi. It's a duty visit. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see some handwritten words, but I can't see it clearly. Are they instructions from the Chief Executive or are they notes from your colleagues? You're talking about part 2, where the Chief Executive has signed. It seems from the ink that they are from the Chief Executive. I see those words. They are in a thicker line, and they are the handwriting of the Chief Executive. Can you read it out, please? And I think this is something to do with my work. I now read it out. Sorry, can I have half a minute? Application approved. I think the word is but, more a but than an and. Please consider or shorten your commitment in light of later operations replies. I think my understanding is that my application between the 25th and the 30th was approved. I remember this is in relation to Guangxi. He gave me an approval, but he asked me to shorten, or at least to consider shortening my commitment. The commitment, I think, refers to the trip in light of latest, in light of latest operations requirements. Kenneth, the other words are mine. What did you write? Yes, sir? No. Yes, something close. Spoken. Head ops. Situation under control. Can you elaborate the words under control? Situation under control. Dated the 23rd. I can elaborate on this. May I? Yes. It's approved on the 22nd. the CE was concerned about certain things. Please keep in mind the latest operations requirements. Yes, you can skip that. And given that, please consider shortening your trip. Well, the word head ops is here, so I know. I asked head ops what the situation was. Well, it's under control, so it's all right. I would definitely call the chief executive back because he's expressed a concern. And may I elaborate more on this? Before you do that, please refer to the document between the 25th and 30th and is crossed out and replaced with 29th. Let me check with my itinerary. Well, he asked me to shorten the trip, so even if it's under control, I would try to shorten it. I think it's Jan 35. Jan 35, Guangxi. Is it trip 9? It's page 120. Sorry, 120 is the application. There should be an itinerary. It's trip 9. So the itinerary is page 7. Page 7 of Jan 35. Between the 25th and the 29th, it's shortened. Mr. Leung, Chairman, there can be two ways to interpret the situation. When Mr. Tong was the commissioner, he listened to the advice of the CE and shortened his trip. But when we refer to the Beijing and Guangxi itineraries, were they necessary? And if there was operation requirements, please refer to page 7. Is the morning of the 27th visit the works of the Olympic Games. You had official duties. Why did you have to go to see the Olympic Games, the works? Yes, you might have the approval of the chief executive, but is this item necessary in your itinerary? You spend the whole morning visiting the works of the Olympic Games. Mr. Tong. I'm now looking at page 7. Prior to the approval of the chief executive, this matter was being planned. On the 26th, there was a meeting in preparation of a meeting of the three sides. We've just started the annual event of the meeting of the three sides, Hong Kong, Mainland, and Macau. It was a start. And senior officials will have to make decisions. And I think that was the main duty in relation to the visit to Beijing. And there was also a series of exchanges and some tasks. And I think on the second day, the main duty was the visit to the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office of the State Council, and then the visit to the works of the Olympic Games, and I flew to Nanning. The appointment in Nanning is to meet someone. I think it was an official sent to Guangxi, the person from the Ministry of Supervision. And I think I was anxious to get back. Well, in the evening, I met with the number of officials, and I passed Guilin. And on the same day, I returned to Hong Kong. It was the 29th. On page 120, in the application to the Chief Executive, you did not say as much. It just said, liaison visit to mainland counterparts. You did not elaborate on all these secret works and duties. Are they all included? I'd like to take the opportunity. Now, Mr. Leung asked you questions. I don't want to know about your secrets, but we're looking at it from the point of value for money. We want to know about the purpose of your visit. You refer us to page 7 of Gen 22. You've added some information about the meeting of the 3 places. However, such information is missing from the application form. You just gloss over, saying that it was a liaison visit. So Mr. Leung's question is right to the point. It's a valid question. You had important duties to perform, and it's necessary according to you. But in your application form, well, I don't want to just take you around the block. I want you to focus on this.
Well, may I take this opportunity, Chairman, to reiterate one point. We talked about this point for more than once in this council. The information to be contained in this form used back then was not very detailed, including the itinerary. I understand that subsequently there have been improvements, but then I want to say that little information was required to be provided to the CE. And Chairman, I admit what you said, and in relation to page 120, the form to be submitted to the CE in relation to Beijing and Guangxi. And in fact, I also mentioned Guilin Municipal Supervision Department. And can I make this point? Similarly, Sichuan, Yunnan, these cases were the same. Back then, when we submitted the applications, we did not have the idea of disclosing all the details of the itineraries to the Chief Executive. Whether it was right or wrong, it was our practice, it was a general practice. It wasn't the case that I omitted mentioning I would go to Leshan, etc. when I visited Yunnan and Sichuan. So I did go to Guilin, but it was in Guangxi that was contained in my itinerary. Mr. Leung, I understand how Mr. Tong filled in the form, but one final point, Mr. Chairman. If you have duties in Hong Kong, and if the CE had approved, well, about Beijing, you explained it, and for Guilin or Guangxi, it was for liaison purpose. Now, if you had operations in Hong Kong, maybe you should have told the other party that you must return. And I think the other party would understand. This would not make people feel that you attach importance to liaison more than operations. I request to respond. I discussed with the head ops, and the case, well, no need to discuss discuss or disclose the case with us. It's a matter of control. It's a matter of timing. Mr. Tong, you must understand that our committee is required to write a report. We're not trying to be fault finding. We need to find out whether there are any faults in the system, and we need to give our recommendations to the administration, and who should be responsible in the system. Mr. Leung already asked you for 33 minutes, and he wished to find out whether somebody had abused the system and doing something that he shouldn't have done, and that's the scope of our committee. So, in relation to the form, well, either it means you totally disregarded the chief executive, or you just put wool over his eyes, or you just take it as a matter of formality. So can you explain to us, did you start this practice, or was it the established practice even before you? Is it a historical problem? To my understanding, this form had all along been used in such a manner. It wasn't created by me, and the form here says to private secretary to chief executive, but it was the chief executive who signed it himself. If further discussions were necessary, I could speak personally to either the private secretary or to chief executive himself. I used this form back then because, as I mentioned before, I needed to inform the chief executive that I would be absent from Hong Kong, and he would ask me not to leave Hong Kong if he thought that I shouldn't. And I would also inform him whom I'd be visiting and whom will be standing in for me, and the methods of contact. And back then, indeed, not all the details had been disclosed to the chief executive, but that was the established practice. Perhaps we can ask the ICAC for the information. I mean, his predecessor, the former commissioner. Maybe we can ask about the forms used so that we can make comparisons. Now the rules have tightened, so we can compare Mr. Tong with the commissioner before him. All right, thank you. Next, Alan. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on the public hearing held on the 26th of September and the limited papers submitted to us by the ICAC subsequently. So first question for Mr. Tong. On the 26th of September, during the public hearing, we knew from Deputy Commissioner Ms. Mu the following. I'd like you to comment on this. Page number, please. Now, Ms. Mu said that in relation to Mr. Tong's trip to Lijiang, she said that it was mostly for entertainment. So do you agree? Do you agree to what she said?
你同意定唔同意？
我未揾到有關
Oh, please check your papers. I have yet to find the relevant paragraphs, but it's on page 58. Page 58. Paragraph or line 18. Line 18. Yes. Of course, you can see in it that it was mostly for fun. But if you look at the itinerary for that day, that was the arrangement. So, were you arranged to have fun? That was about the trip to Lijiang. I agree that among the 2 duty visits for the trip to Sichuan, Leshan, it was quite substantially for non-work purpose. And I recall by reading the papers that for 2 days in the morning and in the evenings, I had official liaisons, but I agree that for the interim period, it was mostly for non-work purposes. So you agree that that day you went to have fun? No. What I said was in the interim period whilst in Leshan, it was for non-work purpose, and I agree that in Sichuan, Leshan, it was quite substantially for non-work purpose. I'd like Mr. Tong to look at Jan 22. About Yunnan, Beijing, about his application to the chief executive to leave Hong Kong for official business. That's in Jan 22. Page 125. Have you located the page? Yes. Now you can see that the application to leave Hong Kong was for the period between the 11th and the 17th of January. Mr. Tong? Yes, I can see that. So, may I refer you to page 59 of the IRC report in Appendix 7. You could remind yourself in relation to the itinerary for the Lijiang trip. So my question for you is that you submitted the application to the chief executive on the 5th of January. That was 6 days before you left. That was on the 5th of January. That was your signature. The date, 5th of January, and the approval was given on the following day, on the 6th, by the chief executive. And the 5th of January was just 6 days away from the date you left for the trip on the 11th. So at the time when this form was prepared, did you know whether, as far as the itinerary was concerned, it was mostly for fun? Mr. Tong, I recalled, and I believe that I recalled, basically it was said on the 25th that for the specific itinerary, we didn't receive it until 2 days before departure. And that was the last working day, and I submitted the application on the 5th. That was a few days before departure. Back then, the specific itinerary to Yunnan had not been received, save that I knew I was going to Yunnan. Well, Mr. Tong, I'd like to know whether this is the usual practice. When you were the former commissioner, when you applied to leave Hong Kong for a specific period, you had yet to know for what purpose you were leaving Hong Kong. But then you asked for a leave period of 7 days between 11th to 17th. I knew the specific purpose of the so-called mission of the duty visit and the goal to be achieved, and I I would spend quite some time to stay in Beijing to understand the situation of Beijing. And when I applied to leave Hong Kong for Beijing, sometimes I wouldn't know exactly what the itinerary was. I'm not asking the general situation. I'm asking whether this is the usual practice. That is, would you apply to the chief executive to leave Hong Kong for official business before you knew what you would be doing there? Was it the usual practice? It happened from time to time, I would say quite often. But that happened. That was not uncommon. That was generally what would happen. I'm not quite sure about your answer. Is it that most of the time you wouldn't know the details, would only know the period concerned? Now, for Beijing, I wouldn't know. I mean, apart from Beijing, I mean, even for Beijing, I would know whom I would be meeting and what I would be doing, but I wouldn't know the specific details. Now, do you agree that the better way to do it is to finalize the itinerary first, to know that you're not going there for entertainment before you apply to the chief executive for leaving Hong Kong for a specific period of time? I agree that this is a better way to do it. Then why didn't you do it then? I didn't do it then because very often, not until we were close to departure would we know the details of the itinerary. May I reiterate that because we liaised directly with the counterpart in Beijing, we could ask directly. But once leaving Beijing, directions would be given from Beijing to other provincial governments on the arrangements. So about 2 days before departure, would we be told? So what can you explain to us? You had been to so many places. What was the relevance to your work? Was it for education, or, well, the relevance was that apart from Beijing, we needed to understand the operations of other provincial governments? The ICAC set down 2 working targets. One was you can call it education. And to strengthen training in collaboration with the other places like Yunnan, to discuss with them how to set up a mechanism for training. And for Yunnan, it was followed up on by way of training courses. Now, you please bear in mind that in relation to the ICAC ordinance, Mr. Leung asked you before your scope of work, and there were 35 duty visits. And about your job responsibilities, well, is it still relevant? But you must bear in mind that you're a very important official bound by the ordinance. So Mr. Leung asked you before in relation to the ordinance, and you must tell us clearly. You met a lot of officials in other places, but what was the purpose? What had those to do with your duties under the ordinance? That's why we have been spending much time, and some audience might not understand why we are asking all these questions. But from the point of view of value for money audit, we really need to understand the ins and outs of the matter. That is why we're having so many hearings, so many days of hearings. So was it necessary for you to pay those duty visits for education? Well, the questions were asked before. You were told not to go. But what was the purpose? Maybe some operations were involved and you must personally be involved with them. But for some others, might be other officials could conduct them on your behalf. So was it just for exchange? Well, Chairman, maybe I'll elaborate. Maybe I'll elaborate on this. Back then, there was a policy in ICAC, and we would take the initiative to invite some counterpart units to conduct joint training as well as to have exchanges. And the responsibilities of the ICAC are set out in Section 12 of the ICAC Ordinance. And in June and July this year, some papers were submitted to the PAC by the ICAC explaining the justifications for ICAC to have exchange and duty visits with counterparts. For example, Jan 22, or well, let's not talk about the present practice. We're talking about the your days. From Jan 23 to Jan 25, these papers set out why ICAC has to strengthen its relationship with their counterparts. One of the ideas is to strengthen communication and to strengthen its enforcement powers. And one other purpose is to set up a mechanism for joint investigation. Ellen, sorry, I don't want to beat about the bush. Chairman, one final point. Just to add to the Lijiang trip, the 11th of January, it was Sunday when you departed, and the previous working day should be the Friday the 9th. So, had you known by then, on the 9th of January, that on the 16th of January, the next Friday, that you would be going out for fun. I knew about the itinerary on Friday. I don't agree that I would be there for fun. There was a question on whether I should apply to the Chief Executive for a period of 1 week. I applied to the Chief Executive for a week, not for leave, but for duty visit. When I read the application form, well, there were lots of paper to sign, lots of formalities to go through. I can't recall very clearly, but I did see Li Jiang, and I did recall I had this impression back then, and that is the provincial court or the procurate court. I had yet to see the facilities.
Looking at the matter from the value for money perspective, Mr. Leung has asked this question. The CE was concerned about the number of days during which you leave Hong Kong. On the 16th of June, or rather on the 1st of January, there was a visit to the Lijiang Procuratorate. It was just formality. You went there, shake hands, took photos. Now, before commencing the visit, did you consider reporting to the CE first? It was a Friday. The CE still worked on that day. On the 9th of January, you knew that you would go to have fun in Lijiang on the 16th of January. Didn't you think there was a need to inform the CE? I hadn't thought about talking to the CE on that. And Mr. Leung raised the concern because of the latest operational requirements. I think going to Lijiang wasn't just a formality. The procuratorate was a new arrangement. There was a rebuild after the earthquake. They introduced a new system, and they followed the ICA's example. They just asked us to conduct a visit, see if we think that was okay. Now, you didn't know. You should know that there was a visit to the local procuratorate, and you felt that there was no need to report to the CE further on the 9th. I didn't think there was the need. Apart from visiting the procuratorate, we also met with the municipal secretary on redevelopment after earthquake. Now, I want to follow up on briskets and fish balls. On the 26th of July, at the meeting with Ms. Moo, we knew from her that briskets and fish, she agreed that briskets and fish balls shouldn't be commission-wide gifts. Which paper do you refer to? Please refer to version VER 7, the 26th of September transcript, pages 157 onwards. Yes. On page 159, now I ask this. My question is very simple. According to CSO 1996, and the notice is, would you agree with me that beef briskets and fish balls shouldn't be commission-wide gifts? I don't want to waste time. I've heard Ms. Kwan. I want Ms. Moo to answer my question directly. And then Ms. Moo said she agreed with me, i.e. briskets and fish balls shouldn't be commission-wide gifts. And then, in fact, I did ask Ms. Kwan, the Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Administrative Division. She said that she just looked at the vouchers and and when there was your name signed on the voucher, she would accept that and put it and make an accounting entry as a commission-wide gift. The decision to make briskets and fish balls commission-wide gifts and put them enter them into the accounts was the decision made by you. As for the purchase of beef briskets and fish balls as gifts, I gave the approval on that. Okay. As for making such an accounting entry and seeking reimbursement, had you consulted other colleagues, including Ms. Moo, the Assistant Commissioner? Mr. Tong. Well, that was special, rather special. I recall that. That was before a visit. There was a discussion on gifts. Whether Ms. Moo was involved in that discussion, I cannot recall. Whether she was a member of the delegation, I cannot recall. In fact, before Ms. Moo became the Assistant Commissioner, her work was not dealing with external relations. As for the trigger point of the incident, they gave us fruit and lychees. They were local products, so therefore, in order to give them a gift, we also give them some local gifts. As for who bought that, the ICAC was not able to provide the receipts. The accounting was not done by me. What they want from me is the approval. Now, one cannot keep briskets and fish balls if they when they presented the gifts, did they consume that on the spot? Well, I cannot recall whether I saw the briskets and fish balls. How they presented them, I don't know, and I didn't have a bite of that. It was a rather short trip. It was a short trip. As for the CSO, Commission Standing Orders, in 2009, the 10th of July, there was an amendment, 2009. And it said very clearly that a beverage tip and should not be separately booked. Now, before the promulgation on the 10th of July 2007, how many meetings had been held in respect of this? I said that there was a consultation. Whether there was any meeting, I'm not sure. I didn't come across any information saying that there was a special meeting for that. After the 26th of September, I listened to the hearing. I also read this. There was internal consultation through intranet, internal communication systems. I was not involved in that discussion. You were not involved in that intranet discussion or exchange as a commissioner. Yes, it was through the computer. I was not involved. So you mean that before the promulgation on the 10th of July, you didn't give any comment in the internet consultation? You didn't play a role. My apologies, Chairman. I have to correct myself. I was aware of the internal consultation, which was before changing Form 569 in 2008. Before July 2009, whether there was a consultation or what sort of consultation, I didn't know. For Form 569 in 2008, there was internal consultation. Ms. Kwan, the Assistant Commissioner, pointed out that that was to streamline the approval process. Alan, were you involved in that discussion? No, that was on the operational level. In formulating the CSO according to the ICAC ordinance, it is the responsibility of the commissioner, and only you had the power to formulate the CSO. Do you tell us that in amending the CSO on the 10th of July 2009, you were not involved? Is it your evidence? As far as I can recall, Mr. Tong, do you need to consult your legal advisor? That's about the law.
邊度？唔使慢慢，唔使急。
多謝主席。
係。
Thank you, sir. Yes. According to the ICAC ordinance, as it is pointed out by the member, provides that the commissioner has a power to set the CSO, but in actual operation, in that circumstances, it was not executed by me. As for the CSO amendment on the 10th of July 2009, it was a regular review. It was done from time to time. The details of the amendment were dealt with by the headquarters administration. The purpose of the amendment, as said by Ms. Kwan, was to streamline the operational procedures or administrative procedures. My understanding was that it wasn't any change in policy. It was just an improvement in procedures. According to my impression, I was not involved in that. When did you become aware of this? Was it before July? Well, with regard to that amendment, I didn't have any impression until I saw it, which was when the IRC report was made available. I looked at Form 569, CSO, so on and so forth. And then I recall that. Alan, I'm rather astonished by the reply by Mr. Tong just now. He was exercising statutory power, and the power was given to him only. And he said that before or after the 10th of July 2009, he was not aware of the 7 amendments. I cannot accept that. I just hope that he can clarify this. Thank you, Alan. Mr. Tong, under the ICAC ordinance, Section 11, standing orders, as said by Mr. Leung, please give him more information so as to be fair to him. The standing orders, you were given the power to draw up the standing orders, to set the standing orders. You cannot say that you don't know. Well, I'll read out that part of the ordinance. I don't know whether you would like to seek any legal advice before you reply. This is very important. This is, we look at it from the value for money. We look at it from the management or governance perspective. Do you need to talk to your legal advisor? Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm obliged.
嘅顧問咧幫佢睇一睇。
The legal advisor, please look at Pt1 delegation by specific public officers. You need to look at that before you answer Mr. Leung's question. We want to give you. I don't have Pt1 in hand. Yes, we are giving you Pt1. Well, I hope that he can answer the question after he fully knows the matter. Pt1 43, Section 43. And then you need to look at this Section 11 of the ICAC ordinance in the light of Pt1 Section 43.
You哋揾嗰個 interpretation and general clauses 㗎嚇。阿梁議員等佢哋。
Mr. Leung, while they are checking the ordinance, in fact, they are discussing that. I just don't want to waste time.
嗱，你睇翻兩個，然後先答阿梁議員個問題，好唔好？
Look at the two provisions, and then you answer Mr. Leung's question.
呢個講嘅 delegation of power 唔係就 delegation of approval， 唔係 power。湯生啊！
Mr. Tong, in answering Mr. Leung, you said that you were not responsible for the execution or implementation. But Mr. Leung's question was on giving the approval. With regard to setting the CSO, you have you have the power. You said you don't know. You have the legal responsibility, and that is given in Section 11. And then in Pt1, there is the provision on delegation of powers.
Do you need more time? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. In the performance of duty of a commissioner, very often delegations can be given to other officers to carry out the work. As Cap 204, Section 12, duties of the commissioner. One of them is a delegation of a duty. My understanding is that the ADM perform some duties on my behalf. They include routine review and amendment of the CSO. Hence, the amendment of 2504. And I'd like to have the opportunity to explain. I should know about the amendment to 2504. My understanding is that I have been shown, but according to the record for 2504, it was issued in the middle of July, and prior to that I was on leave for about a month, close to a month. And as to whether I was further consulted about the proposed amendment, I had no recollection. You did not know, or you did not have any recollection? I did not have any recollection about being consulted. My recollection is that I did not know about the amendment, and I did not understand whether there was a specific meaning to these amendments. On the 25th of September, when he gave evidence, he said that he was on leave on the 10th of July, hence he did not know. My series of questions was to confirm that prior to the 10th of July he should have known. And now he said he did not know. Well, then we will draw our conclusion as to whether, in relation to good governance, he had committed dereliction of duty. But we're not in the court. And he's given his best answer. It's meaningless for me to pursue that. Well, he started his vacation leave on the 6th of July, and it was only 4 days before the announcement. I believe that on the 10th of July 2009, in relation to the amendment of the CSO, prior to that, he should have known through the intranet. If he ignored that, it was dereliction of duty and his own responsibility. We mentioned 569. He said that he was aware of the collection of views within the Commission. It was announced in June 2008. I think Mr. Tong need not refer to the IRC report annex. And from the IRC report, I learned that 6 months after the announcement of Form 569, Julie Mu stopped the use of the form. She explained that a file minute was used instead. I have a question for Mr. Tong. I wonder whether it was a coincidence or not. When I asked Miss Mu, I said that she knew what to do, so she just acted according to what you wish. And because the commissioner is very busy, so he could not do everything. And she had a very strong reaction, and she denied that. Miss Mu became the AC with your approval. And the day when she was promoted was in 2008. Please refer to the IRC report. When she was promoted, it was October 2008. She stopped the use of the form in November 2008. Is it the case that because she did the right thing, that's why you promoted her? And as a result, she decided to disuse the form. Was that the case? Was that a part of your consideration in her promotion? No, there is no such thing, none whatsoever. Even with your data, I have to verify whether your dates are what they are. Well, that is the fact. I don't remember the date of her promotion, October. Well, the promotion process is a long one. And we're talking about a movement that has to be reported to the chief executive because it's not a low-ranking post. And in relation to excluding the purchase of alcoholic drinks from Form 569, even before I took office, that was the practice. It's not the case that it was Ms. Mu who became the AC, and that's why this practice was adopted. I think this practice was used till 2013 when Mr. Simon Pei took office and made it and made the change in black and white. Ms. Mu said that she had used the form for 6 months, which is different from the information in the IRC report. Well, the objective fact is that the amendment to Form 569 was July 2008 when Ms. Mu was promoted in October 2008, and according to the IRC report, the form was disused in November. That is how things happen. It so happened to be that way. If you deny that, I will not pursue this line of questioning, and we will draw our conclusions. But this is the fact. What is the fact? The exclusion of purchase of alcoholic drinks from that was a practice adopted before I took office. When the form was put in place, till the time it was disused, that is always the case. But before he took office, there was no purchase of liqueur. According to Jan 30, it showed that Timothy Tong was not what Mr. Leung said that he was, the first one to treat his guests with hard liquor. So Annex 15, Jan 30. Well, let me check. Set out that in 2004 all the way to 2005, the ICAC used 11 bottles of Mao Tai. But we do not know where it was purchased. In 2004, 2005, the 11 bottles of Mao Tai, well, I did not know how they were purchased, and that was the case as stated in the document, and Timothy Tong was not the first one to do so. The document referred to was Jan 30 in 2004 and 11 bottles of Mao Tai was involved. But the fact is that after you have taken office, the consumption of Mao Tai has become the general practice. That is also a fact. If you refer to Annex 15, Note 2, it says that hard liquor include Mao Tai and cognac. If I remember right, according to the IRC report, well, point it out to me if I am mistaken. It says that well, for the purchase of Mu Tai, well, it referred to Mu Tai and cognac, and not just the white hard liquor used. Jan 30 says that is Mu Tai. Cognac is 0 according to Jan 30. We see that. We see the document. Please do not waste time on this. We have all the facts in front of us. Next. Paul. Thank you, Chairman. I finally have the chance. Mr. Tong, just now Mr. Leung spent a lot of time to ask you about Form 569 and its changes. You may not agree I may not entirely agree with him, but there are areas where I see eye to him. According to the ICAC ordinance, you and officials have to comply with government regulations and administrative regulations applicable to civil servants. Mr. Tong, yes, I agree. And in order to highlight the fact that you are a commission against corruption, there is a practice under which you may amend the relevant government regulations through the CSO to strengthen the idea of your work against corruption. It's stricter, is that right? Yes. So under this general principle, in relation to, say, for example, giving of gifts, there are practice stated. If you refer to page 8 of the report, you see that, well, it's page 9 of the English version. It is in relation to policy related to giving of gifts. Mr. Tong, yes, I can find it. It's 2.6. For those who are listening, well, it's about through Staff Circular number 23/96, the giving and receiving of gifts on official occasions. This later was included into ICAC CSO Part 1, Chapter 9, Section 3, so it becomes compulsory. Do you agree? Mr. Tong, I agree. Paul, could you please tell me the date? That was in 1996? Yes. Well, it says afterwards it was incorporated. I believe that after you've taken office, you knew full well about such regulations. Yes. And the most important point was to reduce the exchange of gifts and souvenirs on official business to a minimum, and to keep the souvenirs and gifts from one organization to another instead of on a personal basis. I agree. Well, can I elaborate? Well, please don't beat about the bush. Get to the point. Using the words of Ms. Kwan, well, this was incorporated into CSO 0903. When the IRC was looking at it, they were looking at it at the same from a different side on the same thing. So Ms. Kwan said that it was through the amendment, and I think that is also the view of the IRC. Sorry, in relation to Section 3, Chapter 9, CSO, Gen 3, page 31. It is not an amendment to the order. Acceptance of gifts. What page? Paragraph 8 of page 31. Exchange of gifts. It's not just about receiving of gifts. Yes, I see that. Please answer Mr.'s question. I was talking about the caption, acceptance of advantages presented in one's official capacity. That is under the general umbrella of acceptance of presents. But this is applicable to giving as well. That is the spirit. No, that is not the spirit. is so stated in CSO. Don't talk about the spirit. The regulation is so written. Let me read it out to you. I don't want to waste time. It's 8. Yes. So you see that? Yes, I see that. So don't tell me about the spirit. May I continue? Mr. Tong, I wasn't asking about you how the ICR interpret this point. When you were the commissioner of the ICAC, in your understanding, did you know about this provision? And did you know that this provision is applicable to both acceptance and giving of gifts? I agree that there was the regulation. In other words, within the Commission, no matter what rank you are, a breach of this provision is a breach of the CSO. Mr. Tong? My view is that it's not in line with the spirit of 8. Sorry, I wasn't talking about the spirit. We're not talking about the spirit. Well, it says acceptance of gifts. That is the caption, but under 8 it says very clearly. Paul, could you maybe please read it out so that we will understand? Well, the version we have. Let me read it out then. Let me read it.
The policy of the Commission is to limit the minimum of the exchange of gifts on official occasions. Where an exchange of gifts is unavoidable on a particular occasion, the exchange should be made from organization to organization. Although it may be difficult formally to ask visitors not to offer any gift, it would be desirable to disclose the Commission policy on this matter to other organizations whenever possible in advance.
In other words, when they offer you lychee as a gift, you could say that sorry, we can't accept that, instead of giving them back beef brisket, because this is a breach of 8. So don't talk to me about spirit. Yes, the word used here is policy.
Oh, Chairman, Mr. Tong. I'm afraid this is such a fundamental and basic regulation, and yet you're still beating about the bush. I have yet to reach the core of my question. Well, be it yourself or your staff, whether it's for educating the public or regulating other civil servants. This is just ABC. Mr. Tong, this is a question for you. Please go to the IRC report appendix 4. Now, just now, Mr. Alan Young asked about the beef briskets and the fish balls that we asked about last time. It was a minor point, but it had to do with whether you yourself or your subordinates authorized by you, whether you have complied with the so-called spirit or the regulation. That is, the exchange of gifts should be minimized, and that the exchange of gifts should be on an organization-to-organization basis. Now, please look at Annex 4, beef briskets and fish balls. Now, apart from these, do you agree that for other gifts here listed here, some of them are actually quite expensive personal gifts, not given from an organization to an organization? Mr. Tong, I agree that certain gifts are not a minimum level of gifts to be given. I suggested that the gifts should be given to our counterpart from as an organization to our counterpart as an organization for official purpose. How about scarf? How would you account for that? The exchange made from organization to organization? The giving of scarves. Well, I don't have any recollection, so I can't answer the member's question. But I think the gifts were given on public occasions, and all gifts given were recorded. On the use of scarves, well, I can't answer it, but in my recollection, many gifts prepared by staff were approved by me. Some might have symbolic meanings. Now, Chairman, my question is not whether the gifts were given on private or public occasions. My question was on first, that it should be limited to the minimum, and second, it should be from organization to organization. Now, for scarves costing over $2,000, well, that's not gifts with symbolic meanings, as we understand it. Mr. Tong, you gave away the 3 scarves, right? I agree that the choice of this gift looked inappropriate. Several entries up, 8 digital photo frames, each with a unit cost of 590 to 1,890. 8 of them, so many. Is that inappropriate? Digital photo frame. Similarly, I personally don't have any recollection. I can't say whether I was involved. But Chairman, I wish to point out one thing. If it's a digital photo frame, it could be in one of the several seminars or conferences organized by the ICAC, and we invited some guests, and we had regulations that prevented us from giving honorariums. And I don't know whether it was under those circumstances that digital photo frames were given. Please be reminded that you are giving evidence under oath, so please do not state anything that you don't know. Now, what about camera? Do you recall? My memory is vague. Beer, glasses, or mugs, tankard. 5 of them, 1,580. Now, Mr. Tong, I don't wish to waste time by going through the gifts one by one, but on Annex 4, would you agree, by reading it, quite a lot of gifts were quite expensive, and these gifts should not be given to an organization. I agree in retrospect, by reading it, that some of the gifts were expensive, and some gifts were given as a matter of exchange, because some organizations did give expensive gifts, and the gifts from ICAC were given to organizations, and the organization sent the staff to pick up the gifts, and I understand there is a mechanism. Now, please let me remind him, don't just answer our questions like this. Well, we have given you all the papers. The scarves were not given to an organization. It was given to the president of an organization. So ICAC has given us papers showing to whom the gifts have been given. So we don't want perfunctory replies. This will waste us a lot of time. So please read through the papers before you give us answers. It's under section or paragraph 8 that exchange of gifts should be done between organizations, but some gifts here were given to persons instead. It's all contained in the papers. I don't wish to waste time, but please read through the papers. If we could recall it, you should recall it too. No. Oh, I don't have a full set of papers, not until today. I am talking about R60/7/INF2. Never mind, I'll make sure you have a set of that. Mr. Chair, just now, Mr. Tong said it's just reciprocating gifts. That's on this reason, you said that the beef briskets and fish balls were given in exchange for the lychees received. But let's not forget that reciprocation of gifts is exactly the reason corruption occurs. Can you make use of this excuse to do away with this clear principle or regulation in the ICAC? I don't agree. Corruption has nothing to do with gifts. Corruption is totally against the law. Mr. Tong, do you understand that for lower rank civil servants, the receipt of a gift of a box of tea leaves would cost an imprisonment of 9 months? There are clear guidelines and regulations on the receipt or acceptance of gifts. If the law is breached, then regardless of whether it's a box of tea leaves or a box of gold bars, it's a breach of the law. Then how would the other organization accept the beef briskets and fish balls? Well, if the organization gave us perishables like lychee, according to the regulations, that this would be shared among the staff of the ICAC. As for beef briskets and fish balls, I understand that that would be shared by the people in the organization. What about scarves? What about scarves within the ICAC? You personally gave them to the president. You were the most senior official. Never mind. Please read through the papers. Please don't give offhand answers. According to the evidence we gathered, very often you personally signed to approve the giving of these gifts. Well, there was a requirement or regulation. If the price of the gifts reached a certain level, then the commissioner's approval was required. So was it a blatant breach of the law, or was it that it would be okay as long as you gave approval? I agree with the member that on the choice of gifts and on the approval of the giving of gifts, it was not prudent enough. And I agree with the point made just now on 0903, the 0903, the spirit of that section was not realized. Now, duty visits. May I spend some time to take you through the relevant requirements? Let's look at 2.8, page 10 of the IRC report. That's in the English version. In the Chinese version, it should be page 9. Mr. Tong, can you locate the page? 2.8. Yes, I see that in the Chinese version. Yes. Paul. According to the relevant requirement, approval from the Commissioner is required if there are changes to duty visit plan involving over $5,000 or 20% of the original commitment. So your approval is required. Do you understand that? Yes, 2.8, right. Unfortunately, this rule doesn't apply to, or didn't apply to you. That's what I understand from the IRC report, because you never had this need, or you never had this practice of informing or seeking approval from the Chief Executive of the changes to the duty visit plan. In my recollection, what the member has said is right. Now, regardless of that, in terms of substantial changes to the duty visit plan, you never sought approval from the Chief Executive and informed him of the change. I don't recall informing him of that. Maybe on the occasion when the trip was shortened, he was informed, including the trip from Beijing to Yunnan to Lijiang for entertainment and sightseeing. First of all, do you agree that this itinerary, this change in the itinerary was quite substantial, which involved a change of over $5,000 or 20% of the original commitment? I don't agree. Why don't you agree, Mr. Tong? The Chief Executive was informed of the itinerary about Yunnan. If it was within Yunnan province, according to the standard requirement, I made some changes, and I understand that there was no requirement of reporting to the Chief Executive or seeking his approval again. Now, if your subordinate applied for a trip to the U.S., does it mean that your staff could go to all 50 states without your approval? Then I would need to understand the purpose of visiting those 50 states and not 51 states. Why hadn't the Chief Executive asked you? I cannot speculate. Chairman, please allow me to say what I know. Now, he was very clear about what he was required to know. He was required to know for what purpose you went. Emphasis was placed on the results of the liaison. I cannot say on behalf of the Chief Executive. Maybe for trivial matters he needed not know, but I can't say now. But back then, some were considered too minor for him to be informed. Well, it's a value for money audit, and at least there should be an itinerary showing your destination, etc. This because we're talking about public money in a value for money audit. I think the Chief Executive hadn't looked into such minor details. That's exactly. Well, Mr. Tong, well, by the same token, if that happened to your subordinate, would you consider that inappropriate? Well, I would look at the justifications. My subordinate would need to give me justifications. If it involves a change of over $5,000 or 20% of the original commitment, and no prior notification to you was required, and no post approval was to be sought from from you, then would you accept it? Well, hypothetically, if that was the situation, I would need to know my subordinate's justifications. Well, you would ask your subordinate to report to you, right? But the Chief Executive had no idea of the change at all. Mr. Tong, well, we're not picking on you. We're looking at the system, like I said just now. Do you understand? it looks trivial, but we're looking at the system. Yes, there is room for tightening the rule. Yes, there is room for improvement, right? In a bureaucratic tone. Okay, I'll stop here. Mr. Tong, coming back to the Yunnan trip, you applied to the chief executive on the 5th of January. The approval was given on the 6th, and then, according to your evidence, you confirmed that by 9th of January at the latest, that was a Friday, a working day, you knew the itineraries in detail, including the part to Lijiang. Am I right in saying that? I believed by Friday my colleagues would have given me the details of the itinerary, so I knew. So if you were really minded to follow the rules of your department, if you were not minded to give yourself exclusive advantages, you would have informed the chief executive. Well, judging by the circumstances then, I didn't consider it would be a concern of the chief executive. Well, whether my decision was right and wrong, that was another matter. Now, from what the member has said, I didn't know whether the change in the duty visit plan involves a 20% change of the original commitment. I reported to the chief executive my original plan, and Lijiang was within Yunnan province. I didn't consider it necessary to report to the chief executive. And there were previous examples of even more substantial changes to the duty visit plan and the destinations. According to your answers given during the public hearing on the 24th of May, may I refer you to the transcript? And according to your answer, you said that you were passive. You acted in accordance with the arrangement of the host. And do you recall making such statements in your testimony? 106 to 120, that's the hearing on the transcript for the hearing on the 24th.
係我有講過類似嘅口供，主席。
I did say something similar, Chairman. I need to check the page numbers of the transcript. I won't dwell, but please tell me whether you agree in general to my statement. Yes. And you gave this impression to the PAC that very often you just follow the arrangements given by the host, which might be ad hoc most of the time, and you just reluctantly follow the arrangements. That was the impression given by you to the PAC.
做個推託。
We did turn down on certain occasions, successfully and not successfully. I didn't I didn't recall whether we fake illness, but we did turn down some arrangements. The issue is you gave us the impression that it was something made out of a sudden, and you found that embarrassed if you reject the proposal. There were certain arrangements. They told us they had already fixed the itinerary, and it was difficult to change that. Sometimes it was difficult to refuse the proposal. Now, concerning the one in 2009, on the 1st of on January the 9th, you were aware that there would be a visit to Lijiang and also some visits to Lijiang. But I also knew there were duty visits in the morning and also in the evening. Now, even Ms. Mu, the Assistant Commissioner, said that it was more for fun. You should have known that before your departure, judging from the itinerary. Well, I just have the time to look at the verbatim. She said that it was more for fun. It was her view. I have no comment on that. Do you agree that it was for fun in Lijiang? In Lijiang, there were 2 duty items. If you just look at the itinerary, 4 out of 2 were non-duty items. But they sent senior officials to conduct exchanges with us outside the conference room. But I agree that 2 items were not duty items. Now, at the departure, you knew that at least one day it was mainly for fun. Unlike what you said, it was a sudden arrangement. It was something out of your control. Last time, the member said that there was no need to look at the transcript. I said it was arranged out of a sudden. It should not be used to refer to this situation. But I still don't think that it was mainly for fun. Out of 4 items, 2 were duty items and 2 were not. On the 14th of May, 2010, the visit to Sichuan, Ms. Mu knew that there was a part going to Jiuzhaigou, and she reminded you that that was mainly for fun and the proposal was turned down. I don't want to criticize or comment on the on things said by colleagues. I have not been to Jiuzhaigou. It was I didn't go not because a colleague advised me not to go. It was not that I wanted to Jiuzhaigou. Somebody asked me not to go. Who asked you not to go? It's not that I wanted to go. Other people asked me to go. I said that I decided not to go. So you said that Ms. Mu didn't advise you that the trip was mainly for fun, therefore you shouldn't go. Now, I was told by Ms. Mu that there was such an arrangement, and I said no. I said no. I didn't go to Jiuzhaigou. Now, somebody told me, I recall somebody told me, one of my colleagues, they wanted you to go. And then on this point, I insisted not to go. Ms. Mu didn't want to go. I didn't want to go either. It's not that I wanted to go and Ms. Mu asked me not to go. Now, when you knew that part of the itinerary was not appropriate, whether it was for fun or whether it was inappropriate for other reasons, you recognized it and you said no, or you just accept the proposed itinerary. I think there are certain things which we should insist. Now, concerning this new version of evidence, which is different from your earlier version of evidence, in the past you said that when you were at the place and there were certain arrangements you found it difficult to turn down, you just accepted that reluctantly. Well, there were no contradictions. It's not that I wanted to go and then somebody advised me not to go. We cannot accept that kind of arrangement. If we know that, then we'll refuse that. As for the so-called second version, when you arrived at the place, say for example, let me give you an example. Somebody told me the Lausanne secretary wanted to discuss something with us, and there should be a meeting. But because of the itinerary, there were the swapping of 2 meetings. There was a meeting I can recall correctly. That was a meeting on the provincial level. It was to be held on the 22nd. I look at the transcript. I wanted to come back to Hong Kong earlier. I wanted to shorten the itinerary by 1 day. It was not whether it was a Sunday or not. There was a per diem. I had to work. On the 22nd, if the meeting cannot be changed, then we couldn't come back. We attempted to make a change, but the change was not possible. According to the principle of the ICAC and also the requirements on the civil servants, if that situation occurred to other civil servants, do you agree that it was a kind of reciprocal arrangement or something, some arrangement which is too embarrassing to reject? I also take into account the objective circumstances. I consider feasibility, whether it was feasible to make a change. I can recall that it was not possible to make a change. My colleagues checked whether the air tickets could be changed. Yes, Mr. Chairman, concerning the Yunnan trip, we understand that you have to fly from Kunming to Lijiang. The whole team had to buy additional air tickets. Can you recall? I believe so. Now I want to know this. Now the arrangement was made by the other side. So did you need to make arrangement for hotel accommodation? Was it arranged by the host? As far as I know, the arrangement was made by the ICAC. We cannot generally accept the hospitality or the provision of hotel accommodation by the host. I may not have a second chance. You may, yes, you may. Perhaps I give the floor to other members first. I want to ask a follow-up question. Can the Secretary ask the ICAC to give us the details on when they bought the air tickets? Was it before the 5th of January or was it on the 9th of January? And when did they book the hotels? We want to know the details. Was it the 9th of January? It was the 9th of January. It was a Friday. They might not have enough time to buy air tickets or to book the hotels. We need to put the jigsaws together. Yukman, shall we have a break? Do you need a break? Mr. Leung Sing, do you have a lot of questions? Not too many questions. Now, Mr. Wang Yukman, can you give way to Mr. Leung Sing first? Okay, we have a break of 10 minutes. Come back at 11:20.